Or there are many names that are not in the groups.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon.
Yes, good morning, sister.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us again. We are about to start. We are already on our fourth day. And today we will have a different theme, which will be bridging into faith understanding. So I met a sister the other day here in Uisg, and when she heard about the Interculturality Asia, she said, oh, please help us in the relationship also with the Muslim world. So that's what we will have today. And God willing will be a very insightful and different approach also to interculturality. So these 3 past days have been very good and intense. And as we do it normally, I would invite you at the beginning of this day to catch up with what we have done yesterday and write in the chat, please, the insights that you have had yesterday that you'd like to take forward with you, that you'd like to continue deepening. So we leave a minute for you to write in the chat, and then we will resume. So if you'd like to write on the chat, what are the main ideas that stayed with you, the main idea? To stand my ground and pursue the intercultural dialogue, how it is important to affirm as well our beliefs, our convictions, and on that, to open up to convictions and ideas. Jesus' boundaries were expanded by a woman. Yeah, that's so beautiful to see how Jesus respected that woman, even though it didn't look like it, and allowed his boundaries to grow. Intercultural journey is not linear, but circular. Thank you for that. So we need to revisit many times the same realities, even though we are in a different place. To be someone who matters to everyone, to stay open and humble. So also today that the gospel gives us the poor Lazarus, how important it is to notice everyone, and everyone matters, even though sometimes we don't know how to approach, what to do. The role of women, the persistence and the perseverance. And here it says a Samaritan woman, which is another beautiful text that needs to be looked with the intercultural lenses. The subtle play between us and them. That's so important. That word there, it's so important. Often it's so subtle, but we do create these invisible and very powerful barriers. So again, the beginning of Jesus' intercultural journey was midwifed by a woman. Probably not the beginning, but yes, it was midwifed. Women had a huge role to play in Jesus' life. To learn from Jesus how to live interculturality, so also Jesus can lead us in that journey. This persevering trust of the Canaanite woman touched me. never to lose faith and trust in God. So she was very insistent and she was perseverant. A person who is committed to interculturality is ready to be both humble and daring, just like Jesus and the Canaanite woman. May these attitudes help us to practice a culture of encounter. Thank you. Thank you for that comment. The intercultural journey is a journey of conversion. It's a long process of open and intentional conversation to allow others to change us. And I think that's true in any journey of life. We become as we encounter others and as we allow others to change us. There's no other way. There's no other way. We are the fruit of so many encounters. Overcoming prejudices imposed by cultural mindset to have meaningful encounters. So there's something here in Indonesia, the courage to be open and humble enough to accept other cultures. Thank you for that word. We need to be courageous. And sometimes we think that interculturality is for the weak, for the ones who don't stand firm on their cultures, but actually it's the other way around. This courage to understand the other person, to be open to the diversity of other cultures. To suspend judgment, to allow others to change us. So thank you so much for all these insights that I think help us and helped us to enter into a different reality. So on that basis, let's continue with prayer. And today I would like to invite you to pray in an interactive way, in a little bit different way. Let's see if I can find the window to share. So I would invite you to write. I will share with you now a screen. Sorry, there's too many windows open on my. I will open a screen now, and here you have it, where you see the map of the world. And at the bottom right, you see a plus sign, yeah? And on the chat, I will put a link that allows you to access also this map. So, wait, I've lost the... Here we are. So on the chat now you have a link. So if you open that link, it will lead you to this map. It's a little bit more difficult today, the prayer. And at the bottom, you have this plus sign that you see here, a pink plus sign on the right. So I invite you to click there, and then you write the place where you are. And it appears on the list. You click on the list, your place, and then you do publish. And on the map, it will appear the place where you are. Let's see if we can do this. So I'll repeat again. On the chat, you have the link to this Padlet. If you click on the link to the Padlet, it opens the place where we are. And slowly but surely, we will start to see the places where we are attending from. So the prayer today, it's very simple or very complex. I will play some music in the background. And I invite you for you to pray for each of one of the dots that are on the screen. We have people that are attending from the United States, from Mexico, from Ecuador, Peru, Argentina, from Italy, from Iraq, from Ghana, from the United Arab Emirates, from Pakistan, from India, from Myanmar, from the Philippines, from Cambodia, from Vietnam. I'm sorry if I cannot say all the names that we are from attending, from Indonesia, from Singapore, and so many other places that I don't know the names. So yeah, there you are. So let us pray. We are in an intercultural workshop, but often we only see our little piece of land, our city, the people we are with. So we are given this possibility of being together in so many different places. So I will play some music and let us just contemplate this world map and allow the Spirit to guide us in our prayer. And so looking at this map with so many realities, I invite you that each one of us in our own language, we can pray the Our Father. And we pray for the whole world. We pray for so many people we know and so many people that we don't know. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be your
Sampai
name.
ng ngalan mo, sa amin ang karyan mo, Panginoon ng Lord.
Taler en taler nater na naron na hul on a new smadu in our vicha nar vi na fe
일을 저희가
akshinai
용서하오니
action of
우리에게 빠지지 않게 해서 보아소서.
하소서. 네.
아멘.
Okay, so I invite you to mute again so that we don't have interferences. And we'll pass now to the questions. Adriana, would you like to lead us on that? I hope as well Mary John is with us. She will help us to answer some of the questions. Yes, she is with us.
Okay, great. So thank you very much again, sisters, for the questions that you post here in our Padlet. There are, as far as I can see now, we have 4 questions, and the first 2 that we can see now. Yes, thank you. Now can see them. I'm going to read them aloud. How is religious specifically expressed in the Asian context? What are the characteristics that define it in Asia? And then that's from the English group. And in the Bahasa Indonesia group, a very similar question comes that asks what could be the religious faith in the Asian context. So these 2 questions are very, very specific about a reality that Sister Mary John may be more acquainted with. That's why you know her. She gave us the welcome. So welcome, Sister Mary John, and we hope that you can help us here and share your insights and experience in the Asian context.
Thank you. Thank you, Adriana. Dear sisters, yes, I am happy to share my perception on the Asian reality. What are the characteristic features of a religious life or presence in Asia? I think it's much similar to the characteristics elsewhere. However, there are a few things I think that will stand out as the Asian, specific to Asia. The first one is the multi-religious context that we are living. Because it is a melting pot of different religions, organized religions, plus also so many other, faith systems. And we also say that it is a deeply spiritually rooted kind of continent. So that is the reality we live. It's an asset, it's a plus point, but at the same time, it's also a challenge. Because I am from India, and I can see it's so enriching, this religious plurality and context. But at the same time, we also live in fear of being accused of trying to convert people and things like that. So religious, at least in India, I can say we have some fear. Even though it's also true that we are thriving, we are running many things. And maybe the situation is also similar in Indonesia or in other parts of the world. So what I find is the multi-religious context of India, which poses both a strength and a challenge. And also, a second one I would think is the socio-political context in which we are living in Asia in general. In some places, maybe, it's more acute there. For example, some of those undemocratic systems that, where we religious find it difficult. How can we promote more democracy, more participation? I think this is another question for us. Okay, we have democracies, but then how to defend human rights and freedom and all, where the system does not support that. I think you understand what I am trying to say. And how to be evangelizers or hope givers in a situation when, as a system, there is not enough push to promote human rights, dignity, and freedom. I think this is one challenge also we face. It's characteristic of Asia. It's there in other parts of the world, but we are talking about Asia now. So this can also pose challenges to evangelization. But the beauty is also the inter-exchange, the interaction between religions, different faiths, the celebrations. We don't always have to talk about religion, but we can communicate the good news in so many different ways. That opportunity, I think, is galore in Asia. And another thing I would say is also the gender relations. The place of women, for example, not only in society, in the larger world, but also in the church. I think this is something that we have to look into. What's the place of women religious? For example, the place where you are living, in the parish or in the diocese. How can we improve gender relations? More participation, more inclusion. I think it's there everywhere, but in Asia, I think in more than other places. It's just another context, another fact that we have to face as religious. You know, recently we had a meeting with the Dicastery for Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life with the Superiors General in Asia. And they had some questions, and I found the answers to those questions really interesting and very helpful. And this again, decline in vocations. How can we enhance the commitment? How can we sustain our institutions? Or with the aging religious, how can we financially sustain, or, all these things. So questions that are asked in other places, we in Asia are also facing. And I think the context of Asia, we think we are a young continent and teeming with life, but we have also an aging population. And how are we taking care of that? Our sisters who are growing old, how are we prepared for that? I think this, as religious in Asia, it's not far from us when this reality will hit us hard. No? So that is another thing. And another area was also in the area of evangelization and mission. How can we develop more innovative approaches to evangelization, considering the cultural landscape, the religious plurality of Asia? It is so vast. I think at the prayer you saw the map of Asia, no? It's just so vast, so spread out. And that's one of the challenges we are facing also. I belong to a religious congregation, Servants of the Holy Spirit, and we have a vital presence in Asia. And we have also continent-wise meetings. But I must admit, our attempts to bring to the provinces in Asia was not that successful, just because of considering the distance, the distance and the difficulty, it's a language, etc. So it's more like, evangelization must take place in your local specific context, I think. And but in Asia also, as elsewhere, we are asking the basic meaning questions of life. How can we be also visible signs and witnesses in Asia, given its cultural and diversity? It's so diverse, and sometimes so much is the distance, so much to travel. How can we more creatively involve ourselves? And this whole question of synodality, I think, also comes here, especially with the gender relations, participation of women. So these are some of the things that I find is characteristic to our Asian situation. I don't know if I answered your question somewhat.
Thank you so much, Sister Mary John, for your insights, your experience, your wisdom, and the way that you shared as an insider, the way you look at Asia, the blessings, and also the challenges and the opportunities that are particular to the Asian context. So thank you very much, and we are so happy that we had this opportunity to bring you in and share and answer these questions to the sisters. Thank you so much, Mary
Thank you,
Jo.
Adriana, and all the best. Have a nice day.
Thank you. You too.
I'm going on to another meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we continue with the other questions here. These ones are more related to the topic that we had yesterday. I'm going to read one. How did Jesus deal with different religious and cultural beliefs in building relationships with people outside the Jewish community? And also, the same person, sorry that I read them the other way around, was there any influence from Roman culture on the way Jesus delivered his teachings in a diverse society? Is there any example? So I think, well, these are very specific questions, and we are still studying as the science in Bible continues. We are trying to discover new things and new insights that come from the Bible scholars. I think I don't know any specific example about the Roman influence in Jesus's teachings. Even we do know about specific interactions where Jesus responded, for example, to the Roman centurion. And I think in this sense, it's related with the second question: how did Jesus deal with different religious and cultural beliefs? And I think through the topic that we saw yesterday, we can see how on one hand, Jesus was influenced and rooted in his own cultural context. And of course, he taught in a Jewish way, and he spoke to his people, and loved the culture in which he was incarnated as a human being. And in that specific culture, it was very important to maintain their beliefs and their journey as the chosen people. So that was very strong in his culture. You know that there are some cultures that are more open, and there are other cultures that specifically the ones that had the experience of being colonized or oppressed by other cultures, they tend to be closed and try to defend their barriers, their boundaries. So I think Jesus's culture leans toward this second example. However, he was the Son of God at the same time, so he aligned himself with God's dream. And in that sense, he was able to open that limitation from his culture and open himself in a countercultural movement in order to respond to God's view of radical inclusion. And then we can see so many interactions of Jesus in the Gospels, especially, for example, with women, and also with foreigners, and also with people from different ways of life, or even different social context. So we can see in the gospel, and also if you had the opportunity to look at the video about the journey of the early church, you can see how Jesus himself and then the church journeyed in order to open these boundaries all the time, one step at a time. And of course, the tendency is there to close again. And there someone comes, and again, it opens this experience in order to respond to God's vision, this vision in which we believe that we are all sons and daughters of God. So that will be a very general and non-scholar response to this, and at the same time, an encouragement to look at the Gospels under this light. How Jesus interacted with others and even challenged his people. It was mentioned today, this encounter of Jesus with the Samaritan woman. That's another one, a woman. Jesus talking with her alone. The disciples, how come is he doing this? That was their reaction. And also in the parable of the Good Samaritan, sometimes we are not aware of how challenging was for the Jewish audience to listen to Jesus presenting a Samaritan, the public enemy of the Jewish people, as the example in that parable. So Jesus did interact with other people, and at the same time challenged his people to open themselves to God's vision of radical inclusion. Maybe, Paula, you have some comments to respond to this?
Thank you, Adriana. I think you did really, really well. I think as well we need to realize that the whole structure of his country was marked by the Romans. So the money, the taxes, the roads, the publicans that he also invited to be these disciples and also ate with them. These were publicans because they were the tax collectors of the Roman Empire. So there's a lot there. The way Jesus taught as well in the open spaces was very much from the Roman and the Greek world. The Gospels are written in Greek. So we have a Greek perspective, if you want, a Greek language onto Jesus' life. And something just to be short, the crucifixion itself, which is the sign of greater love of God to humankind, it was a Roman way of killing, of torture. So God, in his salvific plan, or her salvific plan, took into himself something very cultural from the Roman reality. So this is just some of the things that we can highlight again with what you've said, Adriana. Otherwise, we'll be here forever. But as I said yesterday, discovering Jesus as a Jew within the Jewish culture and the Jewish tradition, scholars are reading the literature at the time of Jesus to understand, gives us a lot of light into what Jesus was as a teacher, as a person. Jesus took a lot of wisdom as well from the writings of that time that now are Christian, but actually they were already there at the same time. So, and he gave them a new spin. And then a different thing, and I finish with that, it's the hierarchy, the servantship of Jesus, which is so different from what they had in the Roman Empire. They had all these order of hierarchy, and Jesus flips that on its head, as you know. Whoever wants to be the greatest, be the servant. So there's just some highlights. Thank you, Adriana. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula, as well. Okay,
so yeah,
I think we are ready for the next.
We are ready for today, and
yes,
for today, as I said, we'll have Professor Schaffer. But the person who invited Professor Schaffer to be with us is Sister Pat, which you will meet better tomorrow. Sister Pat is the executive secretary here at Uisg. So I'll invite her to introduce Professor Schaffer. Pat, thank you so much for being with us. Yeah. We'll introduce you tomorrow. So it's the other way around. And I invite you to introduce Professor Schaffer for us today. Thank you. I'll put her on the spotlight as well.
Do, please.
Florence, can you please spotlight Professor Schaffer? Because I don't have the possibility now.
No, because she doesn't have the camera.
Okay.
Okay. She needs to start the camera.
Okay, so Professor Schaffer, if you could start the camera, please.
Hello, Sister Pratt. How are you?
How are you, Professor?
Oh, yes, I miss you a lot.
I miss you too. So, sisters, you can hear that we have met before, and we met in Indonesia, and we
Yeah,
met in
true.
Manado at the general chapter of the Sisters of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. So it was a very special meeting for both of us. So I'm delighted to introduce you because you will bring such wealth to the reflection today. Professor Safa is a distinguished scholar in Islamic and religious studies, and she has specialized in Islamic philosophy, mysticism, ethics, and interfaith dialogue. Professor has taught at the State Islamic University in Indonesia and as a visiting professor at Georgetown University, the Jesuit university, and also at Catholic Theological Union in Chicago, where both of us studied at different times. She holds 2 doctorates, one in comparative theology, which she received from the Lutheran School of Theology, and a Doctor of Ministry and Spirituality, which she received from the Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. So her research is extensive, particularly in looking at Christian-Muslim relations and interfaith dialogue. And her PhD had this beautiful title, When Mystics Masters Meet. So she looked at Christian and Muslim spirituality in the Middle Ages. So beyond all her expertise academically, she engages in interfaith dialogue. So she's a practitioner, and she also engages in human rights advocacy. She has spoken in Egypt, in Turkey, in Europe, in the US, and Asia. So we are very privileged to have you, and we look forward to what you will share with us today. And I know the sisters will be deeply blessed, and hopefully, Professor, you and I will meet again soon. God
Yeah,
bless.
of course. I hope so. Okay, thank you. Please accept my apology because the signal here is not good, so better for me not using a video because that will interfere the sound also. Okay, can I share my what is a PPT? Can I share screen?
Yes, please.
But it is at host disable participant screen sharing.
Sorry?
Try again. You can try again. Please try again.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. I am Shafa, as mentioned by Sister Pat here. I met her a long time ago. I think last year. Before it was after Eid, so we will have Eid also for next week. So it's almost last year. Okay, my title will be about like what you give me, a bridge builder. So I will talk about when mystic masters meet. I choose a mysticism or Sufism. I think that is the way how we can meet, because when we try to look for what kind of for example, from the perspective of theology, it is very difficult. So I'm looking for something new horizon where every religion can meet, and I think it is mysticism is the place where every religion can meet. Okay, let me begin. Okay, I think as you already know, for most of you, plurality is actually a fact of our contemporary world. It is also a critical civic issue for the citizen of increasingly diverse societies, raising fundamental question about the nature of civic policy, the we of our civic life. So actually, we are living today in a world rich with an immediacy of profound cultural encounter. That's why I met Sister Pat. The living laboratory of what we call convivencia actually is at our doorstep. So quoting from Father Pope John Paul II in Assisi, he said, religions are many and varied, and they reflect the desire of men and women throughout the ages to enter into relationship with the absolute being. Also, we have a plurality in identity. National, communal, and individual identities actually are plural. Thus, to reduce those identities to Hindu or to Muslim or to Christian is to misunderstand the reality of the world in which we live. And religion is enmeshed in economic, in politics, in class, race, and education. So what is referred to as religious violence or religious nationalism actually is more complicated than that. And we have also actually plurality of identity. Our individual identity are also multi-layered and multifocal. So I can take an example of myself as in point, enumerating the many labels that might be used to describe my own complex identity. I am Asian, Indonesian, Japanese, Muslim, a woman, a defender of human rights, a woman with Nahdlatul Ulama and Masumi background, and non-sectarian, etc., etc., etc. We have more than that plural of identity. So,
Professor Schaffer, can I just ask you to speak a little bit slower because we have translation into other languages? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the challenge of pluralism actually is, it is not to obliterate or to erase difference, not to smooth out differences under universalizing canopy, but rather to discover ways of living, ways of connecting, ways of relating, arguing, and disagreeing in a society of difference. So any attempt to impose moral principles based on certain philosophy to people with different cultural perceptions can be considered as unjust and amount to cultural imperialism. What about democracy and plurality? So democracy doesn't require assimilative melting pot image. What a nation should strive is not the shedding of difference, but the engagement of what's different in the construction of a society, a nation, or a city. So great democracy requires that we all be equal in political sphere. It does not require that we all be the same, but it requires our participation. Like, for example, here in Indonesia, participation of Shi'i and Ahmadiyya, but not our conformity. So this is what democracy requires. So we actually is hoping what we call a new we. We are awaiting the emergence of a new we. A we, what is a new we? A we that would bring together men and women, citizens of all religions, and those also without religion, who would undertake together to resolve the contradiction of our society, which is the right to work, the right to housing, the right to respect, the rights against racism, and all forms of discrimination, all offenses against human dignity. This is what we are waiting for, a new we. A new we, defender of pluralism in the common society and respectful of identities of others, citizens who seek to take up the challenge in the name of their shared values at the very heart of their society. So, when Christian or Muslim or others who are co-citizens here in Indonesia and also abroad are harassed and silenced by our own government or by special interest group in our society, so it is a matter of so serious concern for us. When we talk about human rights, the right contained in any universal declaration of human rights or any other bill, for example, is not about majority. It is about the right of all citizens. So, as Indonesian citizen, for example, I will argue that it strengthened the Indonesian we when CE demanded their right for their land, their housing and mosque, and their way of worship. And that it amplifies the Indonesian we when the Christians are demanding their right to build their own churches. So this is what human right. It is not about majority, but it is about the right of all citizens. So now the question is, so then why interfaith dialogue? Why we are talking about interfaith dialogue? I think engaging in interfaith inquiry actually variously inspired, perplexed, and maybe in some cases even repulsed by what we surmise as each other's insight and practices. So sharing some of the same fundamental values that each of us cherish in our own religion, even though expressed in different ways. So actually we share the same fundamental values that each of us have in our religion, albeit expressed in different ways. So I can say to be religious today is to be interreligious. But why mysticism? If we take away a living spirituality at its core, which is the core of religion actually, so religion will be inevitably reduced to an empty shell. The religion will become an empty shell. It reveals text, become an ideological pretext, give way to violently rectifying the other. But why the mystic? The mystic actually is someone who is ideally able to go beyond the phenomenal world on her or his journey to God into the deeper and enormous experience of unity. So they move from specific way of life into a more holistic one. If we can use the language of Generation Z, so with our mystic is someone who has an opportunity or has access to download more meaning. The perspective and principle born of spiritual insight, in this case mysticism, spiritual insight of mystic masters, are not only compelling and illuminating, they are also timeless. This is why I'm talking about mysticism. Besides that, mysticism actually is more needed. Why? If using interpretation from mystical tradition, it doesn't mean that I denied the importance of other exegetical genres like linguistic, legal, philosophical, or theological, because each has its place in the overall metric of interpretation and application. But we are today more urgently in need of a return to the spiritual source of religion than ever before. So special attention should be paid to mystical, spiritual, and metaphysical dimension of the revelation, and to those authorities within the tradition who probe and disclose the depth of meaning within the scripture. Okay, let me just okay. So why mysticism? Because this mode actually, which is focused on spirituality, has the advantage of placing primary emphasis on various modes of religious experience rather than on expressed doctrinal formulation. So we can see when we are talking about mysticism, it is about religious experience. Not only are the final point of doctrine sometimes difficult to understand, but they are also have generally been used as a very means to make claim of absolute and exclusivist truth, and therefore alienate believers of one tradition from those of another. But religious experience, even though it is difficult to define and convey in words, has an immediacy to which most religious people can relate. So when two of us, for example, engage each other in a discussion of one spiritual experience, they must together create a common discourse by which the experience of one is interpretable to the other. So when these two accept the challenge of comparing the spiritual experiences, they are not necessarily bound by specific doctrinal formulation and system by which nature distinguishes and differentiates what is orthodox from what is not. So I think this is the benefit of using a spirituality, or in this case, mysticism. So when we go together, these both people who meet together, they are together creating what we call a common discourse based on the implicit assumption that at least to some degree, the common humanity will reveal commonalities of spiritual experience. Actually, the point here, I'm not to argue that some scholars like Rudolf Otto and others who followed him were right, that there is a common pre-linguistic experience of the holy at the core of all religions. This is a topic for an epistemological and philosophical discussion of its own. But I am here is suggesting that the process of comparing ideas about any aspect of human experience assumes a basis of commonality, however narrow, upon which this commonality, upon which a common discourse of analysis can be built. So now, besides that, why mysticism? As we know, mysticism can be also an instrument of peace. Mystics actually are instrument of peace. We can give an example, Francis of Assisi. He reconciled and created peace between the mayor and the bishop of Assisi, or between the political and religious authorities of the city. He himself, no less famous was his peacemaking mission to Sultan Melek al-Kamil during Crusade 1290. So, mystics as instrument of peace. And now, what we can learn from these two medieval mystics. So I call it when mystic masters meet. Both are mystic masters actually. So in Christian tradition, in Catholic tradition, and also in Islamic tradition. I'm talking here about scriptural hermeneutics. There are four typology of medieval scriptural interpretation in the Jewish and Christian tradition. it is called Pardes. P means Peshat, it means literal meaning. R remains the allegorical meaning. D, Jeras, the tropological and moral meaning. And S, Sod, the mystical meaning. This is what Michael Pispan said in his book, The Garment of Torah, Essays in Biblical Hermeneutics. So he says about the mystical meaning, why we use a mystical hermeneutic. According to him, the tradition of rabbinic mystical exegesis, known as Sod, turned on the principle that the word of secret scripture speak to the reader without ceasing. Remember, speak to the reader without ceasing. So, according to him, there is a continual expression of the text. Continual expression of the text. And this reveals itself in the ongoing reinterpretation. And Pispan emphasized that thought is more than the eternity of interpretation from the human side. It also points to the divine mystery of speech and meaning. So, Pispan then goes on to speak about the prophetic task. Remember, this is the prophetic task of breaking the idol of simple sense and restoring the mystery of speech to its transcendent role in the creation of human reality. So he accepts that one of primary functions of the mystical exegete, so individual like I would like to talk about here about Ibn Arabi and Mr. Eckhart. So their primary function is to continue this prophetic mission. And we can do the same, continue this prophetic mission. It is in the service of thought, that is mystical exegesis, that mystical exegete, like our masters, like Ibn Arabi and Mr. Eckhart, mediate a multitude of interpretations. They resist the dogmatization of meaning and the eclipse of divine light of speech. So taking the lead from Pispan, we will accept soon that as mystical exegetes, our masters, Ibn Arabi and Mr. Eckhart, seek to transcend the idolatries of language and to condemn the hermeneutical arrogance in its all form. Let us see. Ibn Arabi and Eckhart on scriptural hermeneutics. Both in the approach to canonical scripture for the Bible and for the Quran for Ibn Arabi, the Bible for Eckhart, they fulfill the role of mystical exegete as Pispan interpreted for us. Why? Because they believe in an infinitely readable text. Remember, infinitely readable text. Why? They are hoping of combating the idolatries of language and hermeneutical arrogance. So what actually they're teaching? Ibn Arabi, for example, he said, each word of the Quran, remember word, each word, not to mention its verses, let alone its chapters, each word of the Quran has an unlimited meaning, and all of which are intended by God. So, correct recitation of the Quran will allow the reader to access to new meaning at every reading. New meaning at every reading. So Ibn Arabi said in his book, when meaning repeats itself for someone reciting the Quran, when the meaning is repeating, he said he actually has not recited the Quran as it should be recited. And the worst is, this is the proof of his ignorance. Because Ibn Arabi regards the word of language as symbolic expression. Because it is symbolic expression, so subject to the interpretive effort, which he calls ta'bir, literally means the act of crossing over. What about Mr. Eckhart? Eckhart almost the same. He tends to interpret scriptural texts in more allegorical and mystical ways. This is not to replace more straightforward interpretation, but in order to supplement conventional interpretation by delving into the deepest meaning of the text. So, by doing so with the aid of philosophical methods. He actually never rejected the significance of direct literal interpretation of the secret writing. But what he is doing is searching for the deeper sense. Because he says in his book also, in interpreting the scripture, it is always important to elucidate the hidden meaning under the letter, the hidden meaning, allegorical and very mystical. Okay. So here, both, if we are using this kind of hermeneutic, this understanding of the nature of scripture really can be invaluable in dialogue. Why? Because it demands that the person of faith not only take a stand of conviction within the teaching of his or her secret text, but also that they realize that this conviction, however deep may be, does not restrict or exhaust in any way the potential meaning of this text. So, if the dialogue is really authentic and bring about authentic transformation, then the encounter with the religious other should have some effect on our religious self-understanding, and therefore on our reading of our own text. So everyone who has an encounter with other religious friend or something like that, so it should have some effect in their understanding and especially also in their reading on their own text. I will later give an example. Besides scriptural hermeneutic, what we can learn from these two masters as a metric for a Christian-Muslim dialogue is how they both differentiate between what we call God created by the believers. So the God that we are creating, every one of us, the believer, actually created God, versus the Godhead. This is the concept. From Islamic point of view, for Ibn Arabi, for example, he said, when a person rationally considers God, so he creates what he believes in himself through his consideration. Hence, he considers only a God which he has created through his consideration. Here, actually, Ibn Arabi alludes to the two different dimensions of human experience of God. Two different dimensions of human experience of God. The first is God created by the believers, or what we call God of belief. And this changes according to the predisposition of the believer. So God created the by the believers, always changing according to the predisposition of the believer. And the second one, the Godhead. This is the unknowable essence that we cannot know. Usually, people will say, what about our prayer? So Ibn Arabi said like this, there is nothing wrong with the God of belief. Maybe what we are worshiping is that God that is created by ourselves. But Ibn Arabi said, there is nothing wrong. providing that we, the believers themselves, are always conscious of the degree to which this experience of God is conditioned in significant ways by our own limited and particular consciousness. So nothing wrong with worshiping the God that we created, provided that we always conscious that it is conditioned in significant ways by our own limited consciousness. Eckhart also almost the same. He distinguishes between God as understood by believers, the God we worship, and God as beyond images and concepts. Or what we can say, he differentiates between the God and the Godhead, between God and Godhead. For Eckhart, the God who is the object of Christian worship and devotion is distinct from the indescribable Godhead. So he said God and the Godhead are as different from each other as heaven and earth. Furthermore, Eckhart, he said the worship God or the God of believer actually partly human construction, is partly human construction. So our worshiping God, our God that we create, that of course it is human construction, partly. So she and he exists only in relation to the worshiping community. So then he writes, when I stood in my first course, he said, then I had no God. But when I went out from my own and received my created being, then I had a God. For before there were any creatures, God was not God, but he was what he was. But when creatures come to be and receive their created being, then God was not God in himself, but he was God in the creature. So Eckhart actually here what he is doing is he is warning the believers not to have a God who is just product of our thought. Nor should we be satisfied with that. Because if the thought vanishes, God too would vanish. But we ought to have a God. But one ought to have a God who is present, a God who is far above the notion of man and all of created things. So this is about God created by the believers versus the Godhead. These both, scriptural hermeneutic, and this one will be very valuable for us in interfaith dialogue. I will show it later. So God created by the believers versus the Godhead actually is a broader warning from our masters, from Master Eckhart and even Arabi, that we must always be aware of the ways in which we all, as human beings, with limited understanding and perception, inevitably create God in our own image. So the point the masters are trying to make is how important it is. If we are to avoid idolatry, so it is important for us to strive tirelessly to see the human, the created, and thus the derivative nature of our faith tradition. This is important. No, this is the challenge for us. One of the larger problems facing participants in Christian-Muslim dialogue actually is the interpretation of certain biblical and Quranic verses. This is I'm going to give you an example of scriptural hermeneutic as a note as a tool or as a new metric for a Christian-Muslim dialogue. So this is one problem. Usually one of the larger problems that facing participants in Christian-Muslim dialogue is the interpretation of certain biblical and Quranic verses, which are generally interpreted in highly exclusivist way. Remember, exclusivist way and often cited by the opponent of dialogue. This is the example. Quranic and biblical. This is Quranic. Later, it's biblical. The Quranic polemical verse, for example, Quran Surah 5, verse 51. Or you who believe, take not the Jew and the Christian for friend or guardian. They are friend or guardian to one another. He among you who take them for friend is one of them. Truly, God guides not wrongdoer folk. And the Jews say, Ezra is the son of God. And the Christians say, the Messiah is the son of God. That is thy saying with their mouth. They imitate the saying of those who disbelieve of old. God fight them, how pervasive they are. So this is the example of polemic verses, Quranic polemical verses. A common radically exclusivist interpretation, remember exclusivist, common radically exclusivist interpretation of these verses is that Jews and Christians are corrupted people, practicing corrupted tradition of worship and belief. As such, they can never be trusted to be friends to believers. Moreover, these people are understood to be the enemies of faithful in God himself fight them. This is common radically exclusivist interpretation of these verses. Okay? Common radically exclusivist interpretation. No, what about these biblical? Biblical exclusive verses which present Jesus as the one and only mediator between God and humanity. It is in Timotheus. That there is no other name under heaven by which person can be saved. Act that no one comes to the Father except through me. That is Jesus. It is in John. That Jesus is the only begotten Son of God. It is in John also. And that whoever sees him sees the Father. It is also in John. So, these exclusive interpretations usually Jesus is viewed as the only one who truly and fully reveals God. So it is in part on the basis of verses such as this that Jesus is claimed to be the particular and unique Savior of the world. Okay? No. What is the tradition of exclusivist interpretation of those verses have in common is, you know, I give you the very exclusive or radical exclusive interpretation. So what is common between them here? They tend to be uninformed from within as well as from without. What is meant by uninformed from within? By uninformed from within, I mean they are usually deaf. They don't want to hear to alternative interpretative possibilities from within their own tradition. They don't want to know. They don't want to hear that there are many alternative interpretative possibilities. That's what it means by uninformed from within. So what about uninformed from without? I mean, they are usually articulated with little to no experience, little to no experience of genuine encounter with the other. Or if there is an experience of the other, it is short-lived and highly negative. This is what I mean by uninformed from without. So what the tradition of exclusivist interpretation of both have in common is this. They are uninformed from within and uninformed from without. So now, how we use this or how we apply this? This is the application. How should we apply this? First, we are talking about the infinite potential for meaning, right? The infinite potential meaning inherent in the nature of divine revelation. So if we are talking about Ibn Arabi and Eckhart metric for dialogue, this important hermeneutical principle would by no means require an a priori of dismissal of more exclusivist interpretation of these verses. No, we do not require dismissal of this exclusivist interpretation of these verses. But what we have to do is, what this principle would do is, remind the participant in dialogue who are aware of these verses and the exclusivist interpretation. So remind them that other possibilities for interpretation exist. So there are other interpretations. There are other possibilities for interpretation. This interpretation may well be equally defensible within the context of larger tradition. So depending on the authoritative consensus of the community of believers, may be equally even more orthodox in nature. So this is how we apply this point of conversation between Meister Eckhart and Ibn Arabi as a metric for dialogue. So no need to dismiss the more exclusivist interpretation of the text or of the verses, but we have to remind our participant in dialogue that there are other possibilities for interpretation that might also be equally defensible. Okay, that's the first. No, we need to have two complementary activities that need to be done. First, this is what we have to do. The first of these activities would be to imitate the masters themselves. We have to imitate the masters. We have to imitate Meister Eckhart and Ibn Arabi. How to imitate them? By delving as deeply as possible. Delving as deeply as possible into all the contextual resources available for interpreting this text. So delving as deeply as possible. Okay, that's the first. The second one involves a certain imitation of the masters when it comes to the common valorization of experience and its importance in interpreting secret scripture. So in this case, the experience that would be most significant would be that of encounter with other religious traditions or with the religious other. So the metric of infinite potential for meaning of the scripture, that the scripture has infinite potential for meaning, would encourage interpretation of all scripture, especially passages with purport to speak about religious other. Here, encourage interpretation to be rooted in actual experience of that other. Why? Because simple reason dictates that any interpretation of what the Quran, for example, says about Jews or about Christian is de facto so faulty if it cannot stand in the face of given Muslim authentic relationship with the Jews or Christians. Okay, this is the two activities that we need to be done. I give you another example. Former example is about the text, about interpreting the text, not about interpreting doctrinal formulation. A primary illustration of this about doctrinal formulation in Christian-Muslim dialogue is Christian doctrine of Trinity, or the doctrine of the Incarnation, and the Muslim doctrine of Tawhid. So when we use the metric of God, the distinction of God created by the believer on one hand, and the Godhead on the other, so these two mystic masters actually remind us that however passionately we may believe in the article of our faith, or however passionately and devotedly we may perform our ritual, but at the moment we begin to use this belief and these practices as weapons to establish the dominance of self over other, is the moment we mark ourselves as servant of our own egos rather than servant of God. See, this is how the benefit of using God created by the believers versus the Godhead. So, I almost done. By interpreting scripture with a hermeneutic of infinite potential meaning, by never forgetting the oneness and the ubiquitousness of the divine being, by recognizing the limitation of our theological language and our success distinguishing between the God we create and the ultimate ineffable Godhead, we truly plumb the depth of our relationship to God by opening ourselves to the goal at the heart of both Islam and Christianity. What is the goal? To transform the believers into better and better beings, more deeply committed to service God and to one another. So my conclusion will be, we are living in pluralistic democratic society, and democracy promises to respect each and every citizen, allowing them the full right. And human rights is not for majority, so people should not be excluded simply because they may disagree with the values of those controlling access to the policy. At last, we all actually are co-pilgrims in pursuit of God. Thank you.
Sister Shafa, thank you. Sister Shafa, Professor Shafa, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, we are sisters. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a beautiful presentation. I think it opened so many different windows. And thank you for that emphasis on mystics. It's beautiful to listen that from a Muslim woman as well, as is something that also in Christianity we try to live, and often we think it's only for special people. So thank you for inviting us to become mystics, and that's only from that profound experience of God that we all share that we'll be able to create bridges. And thank you. It was a very dense presentation. We will look forward to read it slowly, also in our own languages. Thank you. And thank you for also for your experience of defending human rights and trying to make these reality in your own surrounding, which we will all know that it's very challenging. So I would invite us now just to stop for 1 or 2 minutes. And even though we received so much, I'm sure that some things just popped out. We already have some questions on the chat, but let us give ourselves 2 minutes just to cherish that 1, 2 realities that have stayed with us and that we would like to take forward. Let's have some moment of silence. Let us resume, Professor Schaffer, and I would like to ask you some questions that the sisters have put on the chat. So one is, how is the thought of Ibn Arabi's unity of being and Master Herkart's indescribable Godhead practiced in daily living among believers? How can we share and live these thoughts so that we can contribute to knowing each other and bring peace and hope to our world? And then the same person asks, can you share concrete ways for Muslims and Christians to engage in interfaith dialogue? So how is this lived, the experience of these 2 mystics lived among believers in daily life? And how, if you can share some concrete ways for Muslims and Christians to engage in interfaith dialogue.
Should I answer now?
Yes, please, if that's
okay.
all right.
Thank you. For the first question about Ibn Arabi and Master Eckhart about God created by, so every one of us, actually, every one of us, we create our own God. So the God you worship actually is God created by yourself because it is on your consideration. So that's what it means by God created by the believer. So every one of us create our own God. So Eckhart actually also the same like that. But that is not God, not the real God, I mean. The real God is the ineffable God, the essence that we cannot know anything about it. because in mystical tradition, we used to use a negative theology, via negativa, negative theology. So we cannot say anything about God. So Eckhart used to say, saying that God is like this, like this, like this, is the same like saying that that the sun is black, something like that. So that's not true, right? So better not say anything. So that's what we call Godhead, the Godhead, the ineffable God, the God that we cannot imagine, even cannot imagine. So that's different with the God that we are creating, the God that we create in our own. So usually people will say like this. So what about us? So that means that we always worship the God that created. Yes, maybe, because we have our own perspective about God. We have our own consideration about God. I used to ask when we were in Manado for this workshop also for the sisters. I asked them to draw God. Could you please draw God? So that God in your perspective, right? So the drawing is actually the God in your perspective, and that's not a real God. That's the God in your perspective, in your consideration. So in this is our daily life is like this. So when you say that, for me, I ask my students, what do you mean God? What is God for you? They will say God is like a mother. So usually they draw like a mom and embarrassing kid. So that's God for me. So that's the God that they created. Maybe it's different with me, right? And different with you. So that God created by the believers. Everyone creates their own believer. So this is why Eckhart said that part of human creation. That human creation. And that's different with the Godhead. Different with the real God. So what about then? What should we do in our daily life? Yes, maybe you worship the God that you're creating, but this is what our mystic said. But remember, you have to go beyond that. Otherwise, you will be an idolater. You worship the God that you created. That's an idol, right? If you stop that, if you believe that there is the God. So what you should do is go beyond God that you created to the Godhead. Go beyond that. So this is our daily life actually. That's about what the wujud about like that's also perspective, right? So when you about your question, let me see again the question. About
how do you live that in daily
for
dialogue
example,
with
like
others? Yeah.
As like, for example, like I mentioned before about the perspective on Jesus, right? Some of lay people maybe will say that Jesus is our God. So they pray, oh, Jesus, our God. Fine. Because that's the way they understand about God, right? So we let them do that. But of course, this is a warning from, again, as I mentioned before, warning from Mr. Eckhart, but don't stop there. Otherwise, you will be an idolater. So go beyond that. So it is okay, you can have, even within Muslim community, we have a different perspective about God. You, within the sister, I am sure you have a different perspective about God. That God created by yourself, right? So I used to what is that? Show to my student a video where what is it? A boy asked the mom, I will go looking for God. And then the mom said, okay, but remember that dinner is at stake. So the kid went out, and then what he found? He found a homeless people. So he shared the food that he brought and also the drink that he brought. And the homeless people really smile really beautiful, smile really happy. And then this kid, because it's almost 6 o'clock, so he went back to his house, and the mom asked, did you find him? Did you find God? And you know what the kid said? I found them, man. And it is like he has the beautiful smile I ever seen. He said that because he just like he imagined that these homeless who he give drink and food, she was really smile beautifully. So he said he has a beautiful smile I ever had, and he is a woman, mom. He said that. So the God for this kid is a woman, man. But besides that, this a homeless woman, she also met another homeless, and another homeless asked her, why you are in such a good mood? And you know what this woman homeless said? I just have a dinner with God. She said that. And it is unlike what I imagined. He is a boy. So this is an example of the practice in the daily life, how people imagine, how people create about God. So this kid create about God like that, and these homeless also create that God is like that. So that's in their imagination. So that's in their daily life, I think like that. So about the question of can you share concrete language? Oh yeah, interfaith is not just like formal interfaith that we have a meeting for dialogue or something like that. We can have also in our daily life, right? Because we are living in very pluralistic society, we can do. So for example, like this Ramadan, we used to have like iftar together with our brother and sister from seminary and anything, something like that. So my study to Chicago, to Catholic school, actually that's also one of the way I do interfaith dialogue, right? Because dialogue actually is passing over. We pass over from our tradition to other tradition, passing over to other tradition to enrich this tradition and be enriched by this tradition. And after that, we need to come back to our own tradition that's already enriched by others. So when we come back to our own tradition, we have courage to criticize ourselves. That's actually what is meant by dialogue. So dialogue is not just chatting or blah, 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 something like that. That should have an effect, on transformation of us. As I mentioned before, maybe before we have we have an encounter to other religious tradition, maybe we read certain texts very exclusively. But when we know others, we encounter with others, we come back to our own and maybe our interpretation is not right. So I have to renew our interpretation. That's because of the effect of dialogue. So I think something like that. That's what I can give you a concrete way in engaging in interfaith dialogue.
Thank you.
Is that answer your question?
It wasn't my question, but I think it does answer the question that was on the chat. Thank you for challenging us that we all need to grow in the way we perceive God, because always we perceive God in our own conception and we need to go beyond. And thank you for telling us as well that interfaith dialogue needs to happen at our level, at level of people we meet, at our friendships, and we need to be enriched, and also we need to criticize, to be critics about our own beliefs. On that line, there's another question. I will ask it. So, how are we called to grow in our experience of mysticism? At least in the Christian tradition, often we think that mysticism is not for us, it's only for special people. So, from your perspective and from your religion, how are we to grow in this experience of mysticism?
Okay, that actually is most of the question is something like that. So because the common understanding of mysticism or Sufism is something like that, like a withdrawal from the world, like we are living in specific place and withdraw from the world. That's not actually. So I used to say that we can we be a mystic in the world, so not withdraw from the world. Oh yeah, because I used to give an example like Dorothy Solé. Do you know Dorothy Solé? She is a theologian, from a German theologian. She is Marxist, but she's theologian, and she is also a mystic. And she, She come to protest for human rights, and she come also demonstration when there was a mission in the Germany. But at the same time, she is also the one who really think how to be close to God. So not that mystic is not just that we are how we really become close to God or something like that, but we actually serving others, actually also serving God. Let me give you an example what Eckhart used to say. So Eckhart, he had an experience. Once upon the time, he was in his contemplation, right? So he was in his contemplation, and at that time there was someone asking for him a soup, a cup, a cup of soup. So he thought himself, should I leave my contemplation and serve this one who begged the soup for me, or I just leave him alone and continue my contemplation? And you know what Eckhart is doing? What Eckhart was doing? He served the person who asked for for the soup. And what he is saying, I live from God to come into God. So he lives contemplation, not living God, but come to give the soup, that also come toward God. So I live God, come toward God. So both actually are our life. So not just doing it for God, but doing for others. Actually, also we are doing for God. Is that answer your question?
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure that how I try to make it.
Thank you, because I think what we're experiencing, at least I am experiencing, is that when we speak of spiritual experience, yours and mine, and I'm sure all of the sisters, we do understand each other. Because as well, at the core of our faith, Christian faith, serving others, it's what leads us to God. So thank you for that. Because sometimes I think we do have this temptation of separating our relationship with the God we believe in, the God we make, and the God that is present in others. And thank you for that sentence of the God meets God, because often we forget about that. So thank you. I think that answer already enriches us and criticizes our perception of what mysticism is and how we relate to the God we create. So thank you. So on that note, are there women in Islam who have a mystical experience, who you study? What would you say to us about women mystic experience in Islam?
Actually, what is it? The first mystic, a woman mystic in Islam. Besides that, most of the male mystic actually also has a woman teacher for them. But we have the very well-known women mystic. Her name is Rabi'a Adawiyah. Maybe you have heard about that, Rabi'a Adawiyah. And there is something that's really almost similar to the mystic in Catholic tradition that Master Eckhart used to quote, and also Master Eckhart also have the same teaching with this woman. It is called the what is that? What they call love without a why. Love without why. So Eckhart used to say he quotes the verses when for example, like when there is a verses when Jesus enter into the temple, right? When Jesus entered into the temple, there was a what is that, money changer inside the temple, and then Jesus asked them to go out from the temple, but he kept someone who is there, only certain people. So this is also the example of mystical hermeneutic. Yeah. So Eckhart interprets differently with the usual interpretation of the people who interpret the Bible or that verses. So Eckhart said that the temple is the symbol of our heart. Our heart. So when Jesus come to the temple and found out that there was a what is that, a money changer inside that, they are busy with the trading and many things, something like that. Why Jesus asked him to go out from the temple? That means that if our heart is busy with everything, because the temple is symbolized our heart. So he interprets that if our heart is busy with everything, so God will not enter into our heart, because there is no more room, right? And about Rabi'a Adawiyah, so that's what it means by that. We have to empty our heart in order for us to make a room for God to enter into our heart. And that if you about the what is that, love without a why, if we for example, if we worship God in order for God to give us a, for example, like a gift or something of that we are afraid that we may not have a salvation or to get salvation, so we pray to God. That actually is not love without a why. That's not unconditional love. That you are bargaining with God. That's what Eckhart said. So I did this because I hope that I will get salvation from you, or I will get a gift from you, God. No, that's not unconditional love. That's love with a why. So that's not not true. That's not right according to Eckhart. So the same also even Rabbi Adawiyah. Rabbi Adawiyah say like this. So usually the story is like this. Once upon the time, she brought, she come to a certain place and bringing like a fire on the right hand and water in the right hand, in the left hand. So people asking her, what would you do with that? And he said, I will burn the paradise with this fire, and I will pour the water into the hell with this water, so that those two two things will not will not block you from seeing God. So he Rabbi Adawiyah used to pray like this. God, if I pray for you because I want your paradise, so please keep me out from the paradise. But if I worship you because I'm afraid of the hell, please put me in the hell. But if I worship you because I love you, please do not keep your beauty from me. So that love without a why. So Eckhart used to quote Angelus Salesius. Angelus Salesius, he is also a mystic, and he said like this: love without a why is like a rose. It blooms because it's bloom. It doesn't matter. He doesn't see who will see me or such eyes because rose. It's bloom because it's bloom. So that love without a why. So that's actually also in a woman a mistake in Islamic tradition that we have.
Thank you so much. That was a beautiful insight. This invitation to love God without why, without having to go to paradise or without receiving anything back, to have this free love for God. Thank you. That echoes so much as well with the words. Yes, we are so materialistic as well in our relationship with God. So thank you to Rabia Barzli Muslim. Yeah, it's beautiful words. It would be lovely to read from her. So our last question, Shafa. Some of the sisters live in countries that are ruled mainly by Muslim law or by a Muslim government, and they find difficulties. Rather, leaders that are not Muslims are not accepted, or sometimes they feel that they have to live Ramadan as your religion does. So what kind of advice would you tell them how to go about these rules in their countries that sometimes don't allow them to express or to live their faith? How to engage in dialogue and how to go about it? It's a difficult question, Nancy. Yes.
Okay. So I got it. So this is what our metric, the first metric, what is that mystical hermeneutic we can apply with it. So Ramadan, this is actually my perspective, right? So people, maybe other Muslims can have a different perspective with me, but I'm the one who will say like this. So what is that? We are living in very pluralistic society, and we have also to respect other religious traditions, even though we are majority. In Islamic tradition, respecting others is very important, because God in the Quran said that that every human being is respected by God. So the first one that we have to do is, okay, this is Ramadan. But there are many non-Muslim who is not fasting. Why should they force us to follow the Muslim Ramadan? No. Please give them also their own right that they need. Even within Muslim, the kids also need to need food. So they need to go to the restaurant also. Why should the restaurant close because of Ramadan? No. Because there are a lot of people who also need that restaurant. Why we force maybe the government or something or certain organization that force? No, you cannot. Like I remember there was someone who do sweeping to the what is it, restaurant because it is Ramadan and you are not fasting and you are eating there. No, it is their right because they are not fasting. Why we impose our doctrine to other people who is even not what is that experiencing the doctrine, not even share our doctrine. So let's also appreciate that they what is that they faith that they really have a different faith and they also need also that the restaurant, for example, to be open so that they can what is that buy the food for the kids or for themselves. I think this is my perspective. So when we interpret certain verses, we also need to look at other verses that also talking about what we have to do. So, for example, like we are talking about Tawhid. Tawhid means belief in one God, right? That's the main belief in Islamic tradition. But remember also, there is another teaching, another important teaching in the Quran. It is about justice. Justice also is the other what is that important teaching in the Quran. So when we are doing this, doing like imposing our tradition to other people, do we do justice? Are we doing justice or not? And justice is our teaching. So we have to consider something like that. So if you are asking me how to do a dialogue with this kind of people, so maybe we can talk like what is that? But maybe not really serious, but also just like engage in sometimes we can also give a joke or something like that, right? What is that? In jokingly or something like that. So we become closer because usually, as I mentioned before, that the interpretation is actually is not. It is not based on the real what is that a real experience. That's faulty, right? So I used to ask my friend, how come you hate a Christian? Do you have friend, one Christian friend? So just tell me his name or her name. And he said, I don't have. How come you even don't have one friend? But how come you hate? So that's not doesn't make any sense at all, right? So you know, become closer and closer. I think that will make us even what is it? Become a family or something like that. So that's the way because I always open-minded, right? So I always like to have friends wherever it is and whoever, because human beings are human beings, and God always respect human beings. So we are the same. We have also the same rights. So just tell them, not really in sarcastic way, or maybe like in joking, or have a big friend and we can talk besides that. But also there is also the similar, I mean the good example in Catholic tradition. When I what is his name? Michael de Foucault. Do you remember? Do you know the
Charles de Foucault?
Foucault. Yeah, not Foucault philosopher, not the atheist one, but the mystic one. So he was living in the majority Muslim country, right? And what he did is he didn't engage in in converting converting Muslim to become Christian. No, but he lived very beautifully. He showed to them that this is the life of Christian community. This is how Christians are living, something like that. So he gave an example how it is. To be a good people. That's between or within or inside the Muslim community. So I told to the Muslim community, this is what the Quran said, shuhada linnas, that you become the witness to the people. So the Foucault is the witness to the Muslim community how Christian actually is living in this beautiful living, even though he is living in the Muslim community and he is Catholic. So he lives beautifully, and that he become a witness. What in Islamic studies and in Quran called shuhada linnas. It's a witness to the people. So
thank you. Thank you, Professor Schaff. I think we need to finish. Thank you for reminding us of Saint Charles Foucault, which is a beautiful example for us as well. How being a Christian, he lived discreetly among the Muslims, and he was a witness, as you were saying, to him. And also thank you for inviting us to have a good sense of humor sometimes in this relationship with others, and not to being sarcastic and critical, but using as well friendship and a joke to engage. So thank you so much for your wisdom, for your perspective, for your courage as well to be among ourselves. You've been doing interfaith dialogue this morning with us, and you certainly opened many windows and many new perspectives for all of us. So thank you, and I will be in touch. So I will ask, we will finish for now, we'll have the break, but I will ask Florence to put the poll on the screen. So before you go to the break, we will have 20 minutes of break. I will put the timer on the screen. So just rest a little bit. Thank you to our translators who have done an amazing job this morning, and we'll be back in 20 minutes. Thank you. You can leave now, Professor Schaffer. Thank you so much. We'll have now a break, and then we'll have groups, and then we'll be finishing together. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm sure we'll meet again. Thank you so much. Thank you. And you have all the gratitude on the chat. So sisters are very appreciative of all that you have shared with us. Thank you. Where are they? So I'll put this a little bit bigger so we can see it. And I would invite you to take some moments of silence with these three questions before we go into groups. So the first question, which is not a question, it's an invitation, is share some good experiences of your interfaith living. Then the second one would be share some difficult experiences of your interfaith living. I think it's important to share the good and also the challenging, the difficult, but sometimes we have a tendency to to maybe stay with the difficult ones, and we need to look at both sides. And then the third question, what intercultural opportunities have you identified to enhance your interfaith living from Professor Schaffer's intervention? So let us stay a moment with these two questions, and then we will split into groups. Thank you. Okay, so let's resume. Florence, I invite you to put the groups, and we'll have a little bit shorter today, as has been a very intense already sharing. We'll have 35 minutes, so we'll be back here, and then we will finish together as usual. So enjoy your groups, and I invite the sisters that will stay in the main session to tell us on the chat which language they speak. Florence, please. This is magic. Okay, so Maria Teresa Mahumot, English. Okay, Jerame. English. So sisters that are still here, if you can write on the chat on your or rename yourselves, we will be able to send you to the groups. Tell us which language you would like to participate. Okay, so Dionysia, I believe it's Indonesian. Yeah, she's assigned. I start from below, Florence. Yeah. Tina, Indonesian. Beanie. Lucia. So some sisters need to accept at the bottom of your screen, you need to find breakout rooms. Beatrice. So sisters that are still in the main session and they would like to go into groups, if you can write your name on the chat, please. Hello. Indonesia.
So
Yeah, but can you tell her, Virginia? I already sent her. But
Siciliana. Is that Siciliana?
Yeah, that's Siciliana. She's
okay,
gone.
I will tell her. Oh, she's gone?
No, she's here.
Okay.
Because she's already assigned.
Okay, let me tell her again.
She needs to accept. Carmelita. It's English. So Yuling. Sister, oh yeah, Yuling says no group. Great. Sister Elva. Is it English, Sister Elva? Sister Elva, can I hear you? Is it English? Sorry? Okay, I'll send you just now. Divina no English. Grazily. English. Or Vietnamese. Jenny. It's English. And Kim. Kim. It's Korean. Jungram. Jungram? Where? Sorry, I'm trying to find them in the Excel and send them. Jungram Ko, it's Korean, as I thought. Would you prefer English or Korean? Oh, Jungram English, okay. Well, I'll send you into an English one then. Okay. Goods. Namia, that's English. or she.
Yes, yes. Yes.
English.
Breakout. No. Yes. Breakout.
I've put it on the chat. Sita.
Not yet. Yes, yes.
English.
But couldn't find this breakout. Oh, okay, okay. I found out. Thank you.
Fantastic. Raffaella. Elva, I've sent you already. You need to accept. So, Florence, can you teach her? English. I think that probably she's coming out. If you just stop her video, probably, which will help her. Okay. Okay, so I'm sending them as Agnes Jacob. Okay. Is there anyone? Yeah. There's a Korean sister that has the camera. Sister Emma, can you tell her that she needs to accept because we already sent her? Or does she want not to be in a group? She says no group. Okay, so do you think it's done? Amanda. Oh, it's Indonesian.
I don't know. She doesn't respond. I asked her.
She said she'd voted no group, so probably.
이경희? Is Sister Lee Gyunghi? Gyunghi Lee?
She, yes.
She doesn't respond.
Yeah, don't worry. I don't think she wants to go to a group because she voted not to go. So, unless she touched the wrong button. But that's all right. Thank you. No, but this one has the video, so. Okay, I don't know who this Teresa is. There's many Teresas around, so. So what's this core Uisg? Okay. And then Indonesian. And where is the Vietnamese one? Okay. So we'll still have 18 minutes. Adriana.
This time to share what you have talked in the groups, not to share the experiences from questions 1 and 2, but the third one, which is now in the chat. What intercultural opportunities have you identified to enhance your interfaith living from Professor Shafa's intervention? So know the experiences that you shared, but the opportunities that you have identified from that inspiring talk from Professor Shafa. So we are going to go about in this order. English groups first, then Indonesian, Korean, and Vietnamese. English, Indonesian, Korean, and Vietnamese. So I can see one hand here, English group, Sister Familia. Familia, no? Yes.
Saya
Okay.
Indonesia. Indonesia, from
Indonesian.
Indonesia.
But are you in an English group or Indonesian group?
Indonesia.
Indonesia group.
Okay, so let's change the order. We start with
Indonesia.
Indonesian.
Indonesia.
Okay, go ahead, please. Yes, so the third question.
Oke, terima
What
kasih Sister
opportunities?
Adriana.
Okay, from the sharing from all the sisters, what in cultural opportunities, first is to be able to respect and appreciate the culture where we are at. The second is to learn the local cultures where we are at. And number three, to be able to build a relationship with authorities that have good intention. For example, where we are at is like with sort of like a kingship, like with the governments, for example, that has something to do with our mission. For example, what we are dealing with is in health sector, and then how we would be able to understand each other, and how we would be able to teach our religion well, and how we would be able to build relationship as well with others, because in this place where we are at in Ternate, the majority are Muslims, and we have one mission in health that is really being dominated with all our employees. They are all Muslims. So how are we able to transmit our testimony of life, that that because of our testimony of life, this is important, that that all our first sisters that was from Dutch, they came in order to enculturate here, and they were successful. And why not? Why can't we also do the same among the Muslims? And our missions are still being helped by many things. For example, here we are the minorities, and the sisters are minorities where we are when we are doing the mission in the health district, and we were getting help by others. For example, the doctors who are Muslims who come and help our mission in the hospitals, because our mission, our motto in our mission, we say Serviamus in Caritate. So these are the points that we gathered from our group, that how we take the opportunities to be able to have this interfaith living. And we took on all our challenges, and we take these challenges to be an opportunity for us to grow, and for us to give our testimony of life, that we don't speak about which one is the right religion, but we try to give testimonies. Then these testimonies speak for themselves, and this is why we are still being accepted in that place. So thank you very much. So
even in your reality where you are a minority group. So how to give this testimony and also how to engage in new spaces of dialogue. So thank you very much. Terima kasih. And now let's go to one of the English-speaking groups. Is there any secretary that would like to share the opportunities? Some groups maybe didn't have enough time to reach this third question. So the groups that did, so are the ones that we are calling to share in the plenum. Any
Yes, thank you. So in my group, we saw that when people are friends, and the relationships are important for opportunities, and it helps people also to really be open to one another. Also, when in a school where there are Muslims and Christians together, to focus on shared values that are common, and then to really celebrate them. And also in a mixed, like in the United States, where there were very varied cultural practices, to find like a common ground, even with non-practicing Catholics, like All Souls Day, and then people that drew people together, even those who were non-practicing and even non-Catholics, like the common honor of the dead brought people together, or doing social service together. And then for somebody who's expressing, like putting God first in everything, that becomes a common ground. And then when meeting different people, to be open to discover new aspects of God in those differences. So those were the opportunities we saw. Thank you.
이러한 공동의 장소를 마련하는 게 중요한 것 같아요.
Sister Emma, you are in the English channel, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Adriana. Go, repeat what you said, sorry.
No.
It's just for the Korean translation, sorry. Yes, please, very briefly.
One of the Korean groups, wrote their input into the chatting.
Sister Emma, please,
box.
Please.
Okay, no, she's telling us we have to watch on the chat.
아니, 예, 나는
sorry, what's happening?
There was a group. I'm just translating. A group put up, posted, sent me their input. So I was going to translate it, send to everybody. But somebody else is popping up now. So okay, let her talk. So I just translated the input into the chat box. Okay. We shared when the people from other faith talks to us, approaches us. We had experience. We avoided that kind of meetings, encounters. So we have to put down our prejudice and accept and make a space for dialogue. So beyond this concept or prejudice, we try to discover the good aspects, good side from of them, their commitment and common ground. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for your sharing, and especially talking about these prejudices that sometimes are very strong among us, especially in contexts like yours. So I think it's really a great a good time, no, to receive this invitation to broaden our horizons and try to create these new spaces, new dialogues, and new ways of living out our experience of God. So thank you very much for your sharing, for the experiences that you have shared with us, and also thank you for the group, that you represented. And now one of the Vietnamese secretaries who could share with us the third question. One of the groups in Vietnamese, please. We would like to listen to your findings, insights. Yes. Thank you, Florence. Any of the Vietnamese secretaries, please take courage. Any Vietnamese secretary around? Yes, thank you, Sister Mai. Yes, open your mic.
Nhóm của tôi, my group have 5. We have one idea is that after listening to the presentation, we only see one side of the problem. We don't compare because we only see one side. For me, the title of the presentation is Building Bridge. Yeah, we also become a bridge builders in our contact where we are living. That is an invitation from me to become bridge builders. So the presentation, I can see that everybody have their own way of living and everybody is work the good things that they want to do in their life. I learned that, yeah, we should live together in faith dialogue, interfaith dialogue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this sharing, and also to the group that you represented. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think with this, we are coming to the end of our 4th day together. And thank you very much for your engagement, your participation. And I think we have so much to think about and to keep reflecting upon after the topics that we are sharing today. We encourage you to also to take some time for the video that you are going to receive, and to visit the Padlet and see if there are any further questions or insights that you would like to share tomorrow at the beginning of the day. Sí, it's tomorrow. So thank you very much. Paula, I don't know if there is anything else to share before we close.
Just to say as well that Professor Schaffer's presentation is online. It's translated as well. Thank you to our translators. So I really encourage you to read again, because somehow she shared a lot of content and also in a very speedily way. So to read again, because there were so many beautiful insights, and then underlining what Adriana said. Tomorrow, we will have Sister Pat with us that you briefly saw today, and she will be sharing on leadership, vows, and interculturality. That will be the first part of the session. And the second part, we will have groups in congregations, in your own congregation. So we are organizing that. Make sure that you can also speak the same language. Try to bear that in mind. And then the second session will have looking ahead. What is the plan, the project that as a team of your congregation you can start to put in place to carry this interculturality journey forward into your own congregation and around you. So please do not change your names tomorrow morning when you come in, because we will assign the groups automatically. Zoom will help us on that. So thank you. Thank you very much, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow
Thank
too.
you so
much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Paula.
Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you, everyone.